not giving up.
I am selling the building.
The final season of FX's The Bear.
The restaurant is flooded.
Everything's either gonna be okay.
No, stop!
Or not.
We are outgunned and we are outmanned, but we have each other.
FX's The Bear, the final season. All episodes now streaming on Disney+.
Study and play come together on a Windows 11 PC. And for a limited time, college students get the best of both worlds. Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
Welcome to the All Things Nintendo podcast. I'm Brian Shea, and this is a weekly podcast to discuss all the biggest news and games from the world of Nintendo. I hope you enjoyed that somewhat chaotic episode from last week, and if you're the guy in my comments upset that I spoiled Ocarina of Time, I'm sincerely sorry about that segment. But this week, we are splitting into 3 distinct parts. First, we will be celebrating the 35th anniversary of Sonic the Hedgehog by doing a Sonic 1 retrospective. Then we will be reviewing the latest Nintendo game, Star Fox. And then to wrap it all up, we'll be doing a preview of Rhythm Heaven Groove. Joining me for all of that and a little bit more is your friend and mine, Polygon's own Giovanni Colantonio. Gio, how are you doing today?
I am so good. Always so happy when I can come on the show. Also, it is very funny. The concept of spoiling Ocarina of Time is very funny to me because it's like such a basic adventure story, and I'm trying to figure out what the spoiler could have been, and I feel it was it Sheik?
Yeah, that was definitely spoiled over the course of that talk. It was me, cool. Brittany Brombacher, and Camille Salazar Hadaway, just replicating a conversation we had at the JW Marriott during Summer Game Fest, where we gave all of our theories and wish list items for the Ocarina of Time remake. Yeah. And I think we almost captured the chaotic energy of our original conversation, but we also delved headfirst into spoilers. So apologies to the guy in the comments who was saying that he was not thrilled that we spoiled certain aspects of that game. So I always try to give spoilers. I think I just assumed that most people listening to this podcast have played that game.
To that listener, you'll love it. Don't worry. It's not going to ruin it for you. That game is phenomenal. I promise. You have my seal of approval, and I will not spoil Ocarina of Time on this podcast.
Okay, please don't. But Gio, we are celebrating the 35th anniversary of Sonic the Hedgehog to kick off this episode. But when I was looking at what anniversaries were happening this week, I couldn't help but notice that this week is also the 10th anniversary of one of the most famous yet forgotten games of an entire console generation.
Oh no.
Gio, what are your memories of Mighty Number 9?
Oh my gosh. Oh, I thought you were gonna say like Balan Wonderworld or something, but I guess that's 5 years. Mighty Number 9. So I never played it. I remember when it was coming out. At the time, I think I had gotten the 3DS, and that was like on my list of like, oh, I'm like, this is gonna be the next thing I play. I'd like, when this thing comes out, this is gonna be on my list. And I feel like at the time in 2016, like, you know, there were games that like review badly all the time. Not that strange, you know, it happens a couple times a year that something's a dud. But I feel like it was such a moment that game was not good, like, because there was so much of like a Kickstarter hype around it and everything around that, and it was such like we want like a spiritual successor to Mega Man. Like this is exactly what we've been wanting. And I just remember like one of the rare times where like where bad reviews felt like an event, where it was like, oh man, like, it's a bummer that this one's a dud. And like, then I just never played it. And that was sad. Did you play it? Did you actually play Mighty Number 9?
No. Why would I? No. So
for the historical preservation, I don't know.
So for the uninitiated, it's a game that was led by Keiji Inafune. And it was supposed to be a spiritual successor to Mega Man, but outside of Capcom. And it was like a record-breaking Kickstarter campaign. Like something like over 70,000 people backed it on Kickstarter. It was like absurd. It was one of like the kind of earlier success stories of crowdfunding in the video game space. And it was just absolutely plagued by like mismanagement. There were clashes between Concept, the development studio, and the publisher Deep Silver. And then there were all kinds of just like fumbles on the Kickstarter side from Concept. Like, you know, they eventually delayed the game multiple years, and then they just quietly just brushed the 3DS and Vita versions under the rug, even though they were promised in the Kickstarter, and like people could choose that they wanted the 3DS or Vita versions. But like the game was delayed so much that they were just like, don't worry about it. And people were very upset. And you know, here's a fun fact that I actually found while I was just briefly looking into this. We're not going to dwell too much on Mighty Number 9. It was a train wreck that we needed to acknowledge, I felt. Concept, the studio behind Mighty Number 9, one of the like lower tier Kickstarter perks was like if you backed at this, like it was like the second or third level, you would get your name in the credits. And like of the like 75 or 77,000 people who backed this, 67,226 people qualified, which led to the end credits of Mighty Number 9. How long do you think that took, Gio?
Is it like 2 hours long?
I wish. It was 3 hours and 48 minutes, making it the longest end credit sequence of any media ever.
Dog, you can't. You gotta put more names on the screen at once. Are you kidding me? Put 1,000 on the screen at once. Oh no, man. That rules. Honestly, that's such a cool flex. Just like, because then you just get to be like, look how many people supported us. We rule. And also, like, if you're coming off that game and you're so disappointed by it and you're so mad when you reach the ending of it, and then you're like, you know, doing the thing where you're reflecting on the game as you're going through the credits, and then it goes on for 3.5 hours, you must just be like, no, I'm never doing this again.
By the way, Mighty Number 9, according to How Long to Beat, only takes 6 hours to complete. So 2/3.
Does that include the credits?
I hope not. God, that's
I hate to say it, but I like anytime. And this is not a hard and fast rule, but I feel like a lot of the time when a project is like, I am one of the creatives behind this series that everyone loves, and I have spun off to make a new thing, and it is just that thing, but legally distinct. Like, I feel like it never is great. And like, I just make a new thing. It's okay. We like your creative voice. We don't like, you know, Mega Man. I mean, we do, but it's like, give us something as cool as Mega Man, not Mega Man, but legally distinct.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people were doing that where they were like, oh, I'm going to leave Konami and I'm going to make a new Castlevania game, but it's going to be called Bloodstained. I'm going to make a new Mega Man game. It's going to be called Mighty Number 9. We don't need those meddling publishers that own the IP rights. We can just make our own thing supported by the fans. And I would say Mighty Number 9 may be the biggest cautionary tale of that, but you know, Bloodstained's pretty good.
I love Bloodstained. Bloodstained is great.
Yeah, so Mighty Number 9 came out on Wii U and, you know, pretty much every other major platform aside from 3DS and Vita, obviously. June 21st, 2016, and as I mentioned, those Vita and 3DS versions never arrived, and they just kind of kept saying, at one point they're like, oh yeah, they're coming next year, and then they never mentioned them again.
Very cool.
A fun story that we had was every year, or most years anyway, we do Game & Farcer, which is kind of like our version of like what Hard Drive or Palette Swap has done, where like, you know, although Game & Farcer does predate them, but you know, they do it on a day-to-day basis. We do it once a year. So to shout out to those outlets, but we would do Game & Farcer for our April 1st issue or April Fool's issue. And it would always be like, just, you know, like parody style headlines and like small articles, just like, you know, making fun of the games industry and calling out the weird elements of it. I remember specifically for Mighty Number 9, we had one that was like, Deep Silver announces Mighty Number 9 Game from the Year edition. And like one of the, like, it was just like talking about all the stuff that like it came with. And one of them was an exclusive steelbook in the shape of a trash can.
Funny enough, I didn't know about that headline, and I actually have a very similar hard drive article that I had written at some point. I think after Cyberpunk came out, I was like, I think I had a headline that was along the lines of like CD Projekt Red announces Cyberpunk 2077 Game of a Year edition or something like that. So same hat.
Very good.
Yeah.
So yeah, 10 years ago this week, incredible. And
Yeah.
I also learned when I was looking at this for this research purposes that unfortunately Concept closed earlier this year. So
I
rest in
remember,
peace
yeah.
to a real one.
It's a bummer.
Yeah, but yeah, lots of closures this year. But don't want to forget that Concept is one of the many casualties that have been hit this year. So we'll dive into the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise anniversary retrospective, a slightly more competent and popular and long-running franchise than the Mighty Number 9 franchise. But first, a quick reminder that this show is brought to you by the fine folks who support me on Patreon. Without them, this show literally would not exist. You can get access to the community Discord for as little as $3 a month. We're over there talking Nintendo and doing the occasional community night every single day. Join that for just $3 a month, but they're also in $5 and $10 tiers that get you things like early and ad-free episodes, plus shout-outs at the end of every show. I've also recently restarted All Things Gamers, which is a semi-regular extra podcast that goes out to the $10 patrons whenever I have something I'd like to talk about. Just this week, I did an episode where I ran down the games that I played at Summer Game Fest, and I talked about my trip to Halo Studios for Game Informer's Halo Campaign Evolved cover story. All Things Gamers is where I dump all my thoughts on things that expand beyond the scope of this Nintendo-focused show. If you want to be a part of the group that keeps this show going, head to patreon.com and search for Brian Shea or All Things Nintendo.
Yeah.
All right,
now we're going to
Gio.
read the names of the 77,000 backers. So just hang on for 3.5 hours.
If there were 77,000 backers to the All Things Nintendo podcast, we would be doing daily shows.
Yeah, you would buy Nintendo.
Yeah, we would make Mighty Number 10 because it would be, I would have the resources to do so, and I would do it better. Sorry, that's a low blow. I would make Grand Theft Auto 7.
There you go. Someone's got to do it.
Someone's got to do it.
Yeah.
It's not going to be Rockstar for the next 2 decades.
No, absolutely not.
So, Gio, let's get into
Yes.
Sonic here. What was your history with Sonic the Hedgehog?
So much. So I actually grew up a Sega Genesis kid. That was like my first real console when I was growing up. I wasn't a Nintendo kid until much later. It was really like my brother had a Genesis, so I had a Genesis, and like we only had a couple games for it. As like, when you're a kid, I feel like you only actually have like 5 games for a console and you think you have a million, but it's like, oh, I have the Grinch for PS1 actually, which I did have. But we had a Sega Genesis with like a couple of games. It was like a Ren and Stimpy game, I think, and like the Tasmanian Devil game. And then I think we had, yeah, of course. And I believe we had Sonic 1 and maybe Sonic 2, but definitely Sonic 1. And like, man, having like Sonic 1 be one of the first like true video games that you like play and grow up with, like transformative. I mean, really, really transformative. And I think the thing that like maybe people don't realize if you didn't like grow up with Sonic, right? Is that like at the time it was so cool. Like,
it was.
The character was so cool, just so much attitude. It doesn't even read like it now, but at the time, like it felt edgy compared to Mario, and that was like the whole ad campaign for like Sonic at the time. They like really drilled in on that. So like, yeah, I've always been somebody who loves that series. Just because like it meant a lot to me growing up, and I always associated it with cool. My relationship to it has changed a bit since then, just a little bit, but I still like really admire it and still like always want to see Sonic like succeed, just because like, man, when those games are cool, like I want kids to have that experience that I had.
Yeah, it hit during like peak 90s attitude, or sorry, apostrophe tude era, where it was just like, if you were edgy, you were awesome. And like, that was what they were going for. They were going for family friendly edginess. Like, it wasn't like Conker's Bad Fur Day or anything like that, where it was just like over the top and vulgar and whatever. It was just like, no, he's a cool guy who doesn't care, but he also really cares. And like, I think that's the element that they really have drilled into with like the modern Sonic side, is like he cares so much. Like that song "We Care a Lot" by Faith No More is all about him.
Yeah, that's true. They wrote it about him.
That was all about Sonic the Hedgehog. And so for me, I had a Super Nintendo growing up, and that was my first game console I ever owned. And my dad got a job down in Florida, so we were going to relocate to Jacksonville for 6 months. And we went and lived with my grandparents, and they were about like 35 minutes away from where I was living. So like my parents would have to drive me into school every day, and but we were going to live with my grandparents for like 3 months. And they packed all of our stuff up and we moved in. And then they realized once we got there that my Super Nintendo was way in the back of the storage, and there was no getting to it unless we removed everything out of my grandparents' basement and then put it all back just to get the Super Nintendo. So my parents realized we've already taken him away from his friends. We've already now we've taken away his video games. We have to get him something. So like, we don't want to get him the same thing, because then like, in 3 months he'll just have 2 of the same thing. So what they did was they took me to a wholesale club. I think it was BJ's, and we got a Sega Genesis. And it came because, those wholesale clubs don't just sell you a thing. It has to be a bundle, or it has to be like 25 of that thing. It came with Echo the Dolphin and Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And that was the bundle that I got. And I liked swimming around in Echo the Dolphin, and that was cool. But like that was basically the only thing I did in that game. And then like every once in a while I would do that jump scare where you jump out of the water and it just like apocalypse happens all around you. And it's the biggest jump scare in video game history, aside from maybe Mario Party. I don't know, one of the Mario Party games where you have it's Don't Wake Wiggler is the game. And that might be the biggest jump scare in video games history. Go look it up if you haven't seen that.
No, I haven't. I was going to say Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem, but I guess the Wiggler one works too.
So played that, never really got past the first section of Echo the Dolphin, because then it gets like, it turns into real gamer hours real quick once you get past that opening sequence.
Hardcore.
Yeah, it really is. So I gravitated towards Sonic, and I fell absolutely in love with the franchise. I quickly went out and bought Sonic 3, Sonic and Knuckles, and then went back and bought Sonic 1. And I remember being, somewhat disappointed with Sonic 1, because like it really felt like a step back after religiously playing Sonic 2, Sonic 3, and Sonic and Knuckles. But, still had a good time. And that was around the time I got into using Game Shark. So I would basically just mod the crap out of all the Sonic games. Like I would just have like Super Sonic by the end of the first zone in Sonic 2 and Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and like I would just be invincible and just have a blast playing through it, like, and just like approaching it however I want to. So I had a great time with that. But that was like kind of my origin story with Sonic. But I remember always being like, Sonic 1, you don't have Spin Dash, you don't have like Super Sonic, you don't have all these things. Now, obviously the Spin Dash has been added for subsequent entries like Sonic Origins and things like that. But it's always been my least favorite of the Genesis games. And I oh my God, before I ever went to E3, when I was a little kid, I remember going to Epcot in the Disney World era down in area in Orlando. And they used to have a Sega booth there where you could go and play the new games. And this was shortly after I got my Genesis and Sonic 2. And I remember seeing Sonic CD running on a Sega CD and thinking it was the coolest thing that's ever existed in my life. And
you were right.
And then I also remember trying to save up for a 32X so I could play Knuckles Chaotix. And in hindsight, I'm very grateful that I never achieved that goal.
No, you could have. See, you got it all wrong. You keep being like, why would I play this game? And I'm like, no, man, I wish I had the experience of playing a bad game and being like, I was there for it, man. I went through it.
I'm just saying, I think I used that money to buy a Nintendo 64. So I think
fair.
It was either an N64 or a PS1. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was. I got with my N64. I got San Francisco Rush and Mario 64. So that was what I got with that.
Two equally good games.
Exactly. So needless to say, I am a big Sonic fan. If anybody's listened to this podcast knows that I love that franchise a whole lot. I have spent a ton of time reporting on it, and let's dive into what happened to bring Sonic into existence, since he just turned 35 years old this very week. So in the 80s, Sega was basically just known for its arcade games, but it was trying to break more into the console space. So it wanted to create a mascot that they said would compete with Mario and really give them a fighting chance of going against the Nintendo Entertainment System, which at the time was the biggest console on the market. And in the late 80s, Sega launched an internal competition to create a mascot who would accomplish just that. And for Nakayama, who was the president of Sega at the time, he wanted to create a character as recognizable as Mickey Mouse, which, if anybody said that today, you'd be like, you're insane. Like, nobody's going to create a character as recognizable as Mickey Mouse. Like, you might get as recognizable as Kratos, but not Mickey Mouse.
Right.
When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
So at the time, there was this artist, Naoto Oshima, who was working on a prototype of a game, and it wasn't approved yet. But like, basically, there were all these different terrains like that included loops, and they were toying with the idea of having a character run around in the loop. But he needed to come up with a cast of characters, and they considered a bunch of different animals, and they landed on a hedgehog because he could roll up into a ball, and that would allow them to create like smooth animations. So Oshima took a trip to New York, like he was on vacation, and while he was there, he sat in Central Park and he started sketching like potential characters, and then he would go up to strangers in Central Park and he would say, which character do you prefer? And the number one choice ended up being Sonic, and the number two choice that he sketched would go on to become Dr. Eggman, or Dr. Robotnik, as he would be named in the Western release. And do you know the combination of characters that Oshima used for inspiration?
For Sonic or for Eggman?
For Sonic. So we're going to play a guessing game. Let's see how you do. So whose head did he draw inspiration from?
Oh, whose head did he draw inspiration from? I mean, like, I want to say a Disney character, but I'm trying to think of who's a little rat. Like, it must be a rat character, right? It must be like the one of the borrowers or something. Like
the borrowers.
I don't know.
What a 90s reference.
Fievel.
So Felix the cat.
That actually, I can see that. I can totally see that. Felix. That's weird, but I can see it.
All right, this one's a little bit more mainstream. Whose body?
So, in the original Sonic, not Mario.
No, Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse. Okay, I get that. All right. That makes sense. I was just thinking of the pixels, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense. Whose shoes?
Whose shoes? What cartoon characters even at the time were wearing sneaks?
Now, this one is not a cartoon character.
Oh, okay. This is Michael Jordan.
Oh, so close. Michael Jackson.
Oh, okay. Uh-oh.
And there's plenty more Michael Jackson intertwining in later games, but we're not going to talk about those games yet. Fun fact is the color scheme for Sonic shoes was inspired by the character that Naoto Oshima viewed as the most famous character in the world, Santa Claus. And
he's not wrong. Is that wait? But the color was based off Santa Claus.
The shoe color scheme. So I don't know why, but that sounds so wholesome to me. Like, I picture Oshima just like voicing that opinion with like brimming whimsy in his eyes and a childlike sense of wonder in his heart. Like,
but also like, why that is beautiful, but also like, why are you like, we need inspiration for his sneakers? I'm thinking Santa Claus. Like that, when you kind of say it like that, it's like, what are you talking about?
We need a cool, slick, fast, edgy character.
I know one up in the North Pole. Like, what are you doing, man? That's cool.
Do you know which character Oshima was inspired by for Robotnik's design?
For Eggman, Bowser?
Humpty Dumpty.
Yeah. Oh, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Right?
I
He's
can
an
see-
egg.
He's an egg. Yeah. Had a great fall.
He's an egg man.
He's an Eggman. That's very literal.
Yes.
Yeah.
So originally the main character was named with a much more formal name because his original name was going to be Mr. Hedgehog, but they
That would have
eventually
been so much cooler.
right.
Oh, come on.
Mario versus Mr. Hedgehog. Mario and Mr. Hedgehog at the Olympic Games.
Oh my God, Mr. Hedgehog's mean bean machine.
But no, that would instantly separate Mr. Hedgehog and Dr. Eggman. Like it's like Mr. Pibb and Dr. Pepper.
It's just like Mr. Pibb and Dr. Pepper. You're so right.
Sonic stopped after getting his bachelor's degree, whereas Dr. Eggman went on to get his doctorate.
That's what the game would have been about. It would have been like an academic fight of like, you think you're better than me because you have your doctorate? I can run really fast.
Back when degrees meant something.
Yeah. Just a whole liberal arts argument. And then
Jokes on Dr. Eggman with his crippling student debt.
Well, that's why he's trying to steal all the rings from Sonic.
Yeah,
He's like,
exactly.
I need to pay off my loans from Sally Mae.
He's actually trying to pawn off the Chaos Emeralds.
You gotta. Those Navient debts are tough. I get it.
So eventually they said, yeah, Mr. Hedgehog cannot come to pass. So they came up with the name Sonic to represent the speedy aspect of how they expected this character to control. And they eventually unofficially began calling themselves Sonic Team, which was just an internal nickname until Nights into Dreams, a non-Sonic product. Where they said this was created by Sonic Team, actually.
It makes sense, right? You're trying to sell a new IP, and it's like, put Sonic's name on it somewhere.
Yeah. So after that, they've been called Sonic Team ever since. Oshima and the team originally came up with the idea to flesh out Sonic further. This is a very famous fact, but they gave him a rock band. They gave him vampire-style fangs, and they gave him a human girlfriend named Madonna. And
that rules. All that rules.
Yeah, the human girlfriend thing has not aged well for Sonic. If you played Sonic 06 or seen the backlash against that game, they may have dodged a bullet early on by getting rid of the Madonna character because Sega of America, as it turns out, was super involved, particularly the marketing department. And they came in and they saw this and they vetoed that entire backstory. And they were like, yeah, simplicity is actually the best approach here.
Yep.
And Sega of America also considered getting rid of the character altogether. And they brought up that idea because they were like, this is beyond salvage. And they brought that up to Japan, and Japan fought back, and Sega of America compromised. And they were like, all right, fine. We just want more input for the character's design, his backstory, and all that. And Al Nielsen, who was the director of marketing at the time, he was one of those who was really involved in the redesign. And around that time, Sega also came to a programmer named Yuji Naka, and they were like, hey, we have these characters that Naoto Oshima had designed for this other game. We decided not to go forward with that other game, but we like these characters. Can you create a game built around these characters? And Naka had just worked on Ghouls and Ghosts, which he thought was way too slow. So he wanted to make a game based on speed. So he was like, oh, perfect. This character looks like he's fast. And that's what Oshima's original intent was. So Naka and Oshima joined forces, with Oshima working on art and design and Naka being the programmer. And, pretty quickly the team would expand to include sound engineers and more designers and programmers. And one of those designers was Hirokazu Yasuhara, who would become the lead designer due to how long he's been doing it.
Yeah.
And Yasuhara was the one that came up with the idea of making Sonic control with just one button, which Naka and Oshima were also super on board with. They just wanted simplicity in terms of how the control would go. And Yuji Naka actually came up with an algorithm because there was this problem where they would have Sonic running and he would just run directly into the level design elements. So like he would just crash through the loops instead of running around them. And it was like, oh, well, the problem is he's not adjusting to like the pitch of the terrain.
Right.
So he developed an algorithm where Sonic would actually adjust to the pitch of the terrain. And there was another problem that he also solved with a separate algorithm where Sonic was moving too fast, and the algorithm would actually calculate how fast Sonic was moving and adjust the animation fluidity and the frame rate accordingly. And it would make it so that the Genesis wouldn't crash and that they wouldn't lose like fluidity in the animation or like destabilize the frame rate. So it was actually a pretty amazing technical accomplishment for the day. Like think about how fast Sonic was compared to something like Mario. Like that was incredible.
And Yuji Naka also famous for making an algorithm to manipulate the stock market.
Yes. The Where Are They Now segment. We'll just kick to that right now.
Insider trading, baby.
Yes. So
for making Balan Wonderworld.
They said this game it ruined his reputation so much they threw him in prison.
Yeah, they put him in jail. And the insider trading was just like a ruse. They were like, we can get him on that legally, but we're putting him in there because of Balan.
So fun fact about Balan Wonderworld, by the way, it's a complete tangent.
Please.
I was at my local grocery store. This is probably 3 years ago. And I had I use reusable bags a lot of the times.
Sure.
And I had a Street Fighter reusable bag. And the woman ringing me up, she was probably about 10 years younger than me. So probably like, mid 20s at the time. And she goes, "Oh my God, do you like video games?" I said, "Yeah, I do." And she goes, "Have you heard of this game, Balan Wonderworld?" And I was like, "Yeah, I have." And she goes, "Oh my God, that is my favorite game ever." And I said, "Oh yeah?" And she just told me about all the things she loved about the game. And I said, Yuji Naka's in prison for that game. No, I didn't say that.
I wish you had.
I was just like, oh, that's an interesting take. I've never heard somebody say that.
I have a friend who like loves that game, and like at the time that it came out was like, this game is better than Mario Odyssey. And I was like, that is so you're right to say. And I'm not gonna try to change your mind. But like the people who love the Dreamcast era, like there is a certain fondness for how Dreamcast that game is, and I get it, despite the fact that I think once you play the game, maybe not as appealing. But that's
so. By
me.
the way, speaking of Balan Wonderworld, one of my favorite videos on all of YouTube is Video Game Donkey's video review of that game. It is completely unhinged and absolutely hilarious. So go check that out if you haven't already. And if you want to learn more about Balan Wonderworld and why that game is so weird.
5-year anniversary.
Yes, it is. So actually, Yuji Naka was extremely inspired by the Mario franchise and the expanded works of Shigeru Miyamoto. And he looked at the level design and the control scheme of the control scheme, the level design, and the environment designs from the Mario games, and he wanted to bring that simplicity and that straightforwardness over to the control scheme, where that was where he kind of was like, oh yeah, this is why I like having these one button to control like all of Sonic's actions plus the D-pad. And also he wanted to make a game that was more action-packed, that was kind of similar to those Mario games. But, believe it or not, Yuji Naka had an opinion on the Mario games, and it was that they're a little bit too slow. And so
this guy has one speed.
Yeah, this guy has a need for speed. And Yasuhara wanted to create a game that would appeal to both the Japanese and American players. So he actually didn't mind that Sega of America's marketing department was getting involved. And because of this like insane drive to appeal to both Japanese and American players, they just kept rebuilding and redesigning Green Hill Zone from the ground up. And because they was like, oh, this is the first impression we're making on this game. And because of this, they took around 8 months to get it just right. And, if you look at the other levels in Sonic 1, like it's far and away the best game, the best level in 100%. That game. Like it might be the greatest Sonic level of all time. Like, where does it rank for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's way up there. I mean, I'm a big Chemical Plant Zone guy, but that's more for the music. Yeah, I mean, like Green Hill Zone is just iconic. Everything about it, top to bottom. It's up there. Casino Night, also really good in Sonic.
Casino Night's very good. I mean, give me a lot of different Sonic 3 and Knuckles levels. Like, I think that those are incredible. They're a lot more intricate. It feels unfair to compare Sonic 1 levels against Sonic 3 and Knuckles because they just had so much more mastery of the tech and all that stuff. So you brought the music. So for the music, which is extremely iconic, they got the bassist and songwriter for a J-pop band called Dreams Come True, Masato Nakamura. And Nakamura would go on to do the soundtracks for both Sonic 1 and Sonic 2. And I guess from those first two Sonic games, I imagine Chemical Plant might be your favorite.
That I think is the best, like, piece of one of the best video game compositions of all time to me. I think that's such a jam.
It is. It is absolutely incredible. And you know, I would say like there's some really good ones in Sonic 1 as well. Although I think the Sonic 2 soundtrack is a little bit better.
What is the it's the second no, is it the second level that's like do 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 do
yeah.
All the yeah, that stuff is cool.
Yeah, so let's look at the levels here.
Please.
I believe Starlight Zone is my favorite.
It's a good one.
That's a good one, but Marble Zone is the one that I believe you're thinking of.
Yeah, that's Marble Zone. Great one.
But yeah, the Marble Zone, the level, not great though. Terrible zone.
The springs that just like knock you straight into a wall. Yeah, it's not as fluid.
Yeah, it's the underground or the underwater areas. It's like where you first realize like, oh, this is not just going to be Sonic running very fast from left to right. And also that's when Sonic's at his best. So let's just make that as impossible as humanly possible.
Yeah. A lesson that they carried through to many games, which was let's not have Sonic do the thing he does well. It's like, we know you're supposed to not do that one. And they're like, oh, we thought you said do it in all of the games. It's like, okay, great. Cool.
So remember Al Nielsen, who was the director of marketing at Sega of America at the time? So I interviewed him and Tom Kalinske together a couple of times, actually. And the most recent time was when I was doing Sonic Frontiers cover story. And I asked him about the first time that he saw Sonic. And he was actually in a trip to Japan, visiting Sega of Japan. And he walked into this room and he saw like across the room, there were two monitors. And on one, it had like the art, the background art of Green Hill Zone, and on the other, it was like a wireframe like demo, like a prototype of Sonic running through like an unfinished version of Green Hill Zone. And here's this quote. He said, quote, "I got closer and I was like, hey, that's that Sonic guy I saw on a piece of paper way back when. I walked up and here is Sonic going through loop-de-loops in Green Hill Zone, but it's just a wireframe. He was speeding through it and my jaw just dropped. Then next to it was the background for Green Hill Zone. And then I spoke when I asked Tom Kalinske about like what it was like when Al Nielsen came back and described it, because Tom Kalinske was the president or the CEO of Sega of America at the time. And he was like, you know, largely responsible for setting out the marketing plan of like, we're going to go hard at Nintendo for all of our marketing. So he said, quote, "Before Al went to Japan on that trip, we'd only seen drawings. We all knew that we needed a character for Sega to fight against Nintendo and Mario. All we had were drawings of Sonic, and it was pretty hard to imagine it could be as fast as he turned out to be and as good as he turned out to be." And he also told me that, you know, he'd never heard Al rave about anything before, he raved about Sonic 1, like when he came back for that. He was like, yeah, he just would not stop talking about how great this demo looked.
Yeah, man, if you weren't there for the 90s, like I think I alluded to this earlier with kind of like the attitude thing. Like, you know, you would have no idea how much attitude it had, but like really you also had no idea how like fast that game felt in the 90s. Like it genuinely was like, oh my God, I've never seen a video game move at this speed. Like it's unbelievable. And I remember they like had commercials and like ad campaigns that were like cars like dragging Mario behind the back of a car or something. Like I feel like I vaguely remember that, but you know, they were just really like hammering home, like they would show you footage from Mario in a commercial, which is crazy, and be like, look how slow and boring this is. Yeah. Now look at Sonic. He's got blast processing, which was like the fake Nintendo or the fake like Sega like tech that they said the Genesis had or whatever. It was really, really at the time like revolutionary. And I think like just made it feel like a Sega Genesis was like the most powerful console on the face of the earth, and that Nintendo was lame, you know, just for a brief moment in time.
Yeah, and they had this thing where they, like you said, they would constantly do the comparisons.
Yeah.
And they would have like the Genesis does what Nintendo don't was like the famous marketing campaign. But there were also several ones like you had indicated where it was like they would have two TVs and it would be like a guy trying to sell you the Nintendo system, whether it was NES or SNES, I forget. And he's like, hey, look at this Nintendo console. Don't pay any attention to this Sega console. And then like the guy, like the POV character in the commercials, like, well, what's that? That looks really cool. It's like, oh, no, don't worry about that. That's too fast for you. And it's just like, it
forbidden.
was,
yeah,
it was positioning as so anti-establishment and like not what the retailers want you to do.
Yeah.
And then it became cool and rebellious to get it because of that. But also it was like they would show like Super Mario World and he would be like slowly climbing on like the castle grates where it was like, you know, that the very cool like platforming areas. But when next to like Sonic, it looked so painfully slow.
Yeah.
Because that is a notoriously slow part of Super Mario World. Not that it's a bad part, but it's very, very slow. So when you look at Sonic just running through loops and spin dashing through walls and destroying enemies and robots and fighting Dr. Eggman, like it just looked so much cooler on TV and like, you know, with jump cuts, it made it look even faster. And the marketing was brilliant for Sonic.
Yeah, genius, completely genius. And also like seemingly illegal. Like, I don't know how, like thinking of that now, if someone was doing a commercial where they were showing footage from a Mario game and being like, hey, this stinks. Like, I think you'd get put in jail now, right?
I mean, I don't know. Because like Tom Kalinske also, when my conversations with him, he was like, you know, Nintendo was doing stuff that I thought was completely illegal because they were going to retailers and they were talking to them and being like, hey, if you want to sell Nintendo stuff, whether it's the consoles or the games, we demand this percentage of shelf space. And all of our competitors need to be crammed into this small, like tiny fraction of the store. So like they would basically hold over, like, you know, Nintendo's the king of consoles. If you want us to be on your store shelves, you need to like give Sega and TurboGrafx or whatever other system is there at the time, like a tiny little sliver of shelf space. And they had the leverage to do it. So they would do that. And then also they would buy up all of like the cartridge casings and all the RAM and all the, like they would basically place these giant orders to all of like the cartridge manufacturers. And then it would leave no bandwidth to create cartridges or like deliver RAM to Sega for their cartridges. So it was like really anti-competitive practices by Nintendo at the time that Tom Kalinske loves to bring up when you talk to him about it. Like, I mean, he fought tooth and nail against Nintendo, and it's wild that for this moment in time, the Genesis era, they really were neck and neck with Mario and Nintendo.
Yeah, 100%.
So Sonic the Hedgehog originally launched June 23rd, 1991 on the Sega Genesis, earned high scores across the board. It also sold extremely well, becoming the best-selling game of 1991. 2 million copies sold in those first 6 months that rounded out the rest of the calendar year of 1991. And then it has sold more than 15 million copies in its lifetime. It also sold a ton of Genesis consoles, helping Sega compete with Nintendo over the course of that generation. This first game is also the cover star of the very first issue of Game Informer, as Game Informer came out about 2 or 3 months after Sonic the Hedgehog came out. So the first issue of Game Informer has Sonic the Hedgehog. You can actually, if you're watching the video version, you can actually see that I have an issue number 1 over my shoulder. And it is the Sonic 1 issue where it's like, tips and tricks for Sonic 1, because that's what video game magazines were back then.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Also, in talking to Al Nielsen, he says that at one point, shortly after the launch, they had a higher Q score, which Q score determines the like how recognizable a character is in the mainstream. They had a higher Q score, very briefly, than Mickey Mouse, which was Sega's main goal when they started the creation of the character and the game. So they did it.
They did it. And like, I mean, he's still extremely recognizable. I mean, like, you would think that like a character like this would kind of be a flash in the pan thing, and then it's like, oh, that's really of the time. But like, man, like you go see those Sonic movies now, and like kids are just they just have all the merch, right? There's merch out in Sonic. They like love the character. They see Shadow the Hedgehog on screen and they pop for him. Like it's like, what? That's crazy. But it's awesome. I mean, like, good for them for cracking how to make a cooler Mickey Mouse.
I mean, I do to this day, I still see like on the regular little kids wearing Sonic shirts. Like when I'm out in public, like I go to a Target or something, I will see a little kid wearing a Sonic shirt. Same thing at like the grocery store, at the park. Like he's still an extremely popular character.
I probably see that more than any Nintendo character, honestly.
Maybe like, Pikachu is the only thing that I see more often.
Yeah, that's true. But Sonic is up there with Pikachu, and that's a big deal.
Yeah. And after Sonic 1 came out, a year later, we'd get Sonic 2, which introduced Tails. Then we'd get Sonic CD in 1993, which introduced Amy and Metal Sonic. Then Sonic 3 would come out in 1994, introducing Knuckles. And then we would get Sonic and Knuckles, which was, the lock-on technology. And the series would also appear as a flagship series on Game Gear, which was Sega's handheld gaming device. So, Gio, as you look back, what is your favorite Sonic game?
For me, it's still Sonic the Hedgehog 2. I think that like that game is about as close to a perfect video game as it gets. That's probably like a top 5 of all time game for me. The style of it, the level design, the controls of that, just how fast and speedy it is, but like how much control you still feel like you have over it. The variety of levels and like the number of kind of like platforming gimmicks that they work into that are genuinely really neat and really memorable. Again, I mean, we talked about Casino Zone, right? But that's like, what a genius idea. Like, yeah, turn this character into a pinball. That's amazing. And then, I mean, just like the music is sensational. I mean, really one of the best video game soundtracks of all time is in that game. So it just like fires on all cylinders for me. And I don't know that I don't even know like that anything even comes close to it as a number 2 for me. Like maybe Sonic 1, I guess. But like for me, that's just like such a high bar to set that it almost like shoots them in the foot for the 34 years that come after, because like, how do you top that? And I think they've struggled with that for a long time on and off, right? Just kind of like, how do we make this game better? And I think that's why, you see them like trying to do so much different stuff, trying to move away from the 2D Sonic games, even though people are like, just make another one of those. Why not? It's like, well, they already made the best one. So like, we got to move. We got to do something. We got to go fast, It's what's your number 1? Is it Sonic 2 or do you have a weird
Sonic 3 and Knuckles easily?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the only one that comes kind of close is Sonic Mania.
Sure.
But
great game.
Sonic 3 and Knuckles is just so fantastic. I love the story that it tells. I love the cohesive nature of like the going from one zone to another. Like there's a little stage transition in between them that makes it feel like organic for why are you going from like this zone to this biome to this biome, like the bridge blows out and then suddenly you're in Hydra City, and then like there's just all the different ways that the levels connect to each other feels really great. But then also I think it's like a perfect realization of the branching like level design, and like how intricate that can really get. Like I just adored exploring every single nook and cranny and figuring out like, okay, where are the giant rings? Like I think the blue sphere mini game is just so much better than the half pipe mini game in Sonic 2.
Oh yeah.
Especially if you're playing with Tails and he just keeps running into bombs and makes it impossible for you to complete that level. But yeah, like I think Sonic 3 and Knuckles is always going to be the pinnacle of the franchise for me. But Sonic 2, obviously fantastic. Sonic Mania, obviously fantastic. I have a very like soft spot for some of the 3D games, but although I will acknowledge that a lot of them don't even come close to being anywhere near as good as some of those 2D games.
It's tough because once you get into 3D, you get into like, how do we keep this character fast and still controllable? And I think they kind of slow it down a little bit, and that's their solution. But Sonic Adventure 2. That's got a lot going for it, and I will give such a shout out to them for Shadow Generations when they just did like Sonic Time Shadow Generations, Sonic X Shadow, whatever we call it. I actually thought that was like one of the great 3D Sonic games, and that they really like actually cracked something with that. Also, shout out, real off the beaten path one, to the Apple Arcade exclusive Sonic Dream Team.
Oh yeah,
really surprisingly good one. That one's like high up on my list, and you'll have to believe me because you don't have Apple Arcade and you can't double check it.
I've played a little bit of that. It is quite good. I'm just like, yeah, I'll wait for it to come to Switch, and then it has never come to Switch. So
I think it's going to be in jail for a while there, but it's a great one. It's a really good one. Mm-hmm. Control's great.
So we already talked about where Yuji Naka is today. Naoto Oshima actually is the head of a studio called Arzist, which collaborated with Sonic Team on Sonic Superstars.
Yes.
And then on top of that, prior to that, I forget the name of the studio, but we talked about it a little bit ago. He was the founder of another studio in the kind of mid 2000s, and they worked on a bunch of the Yoshi games with Nintendo.
Nice.
So
hey,
there you go.
There we go.
So
that's good. That's better than jail.
Yeah, it is better than jail.
Yeah.
So today, the Sonic franchise is kind of a multimedia juggernaut. Like it has, like we've talked about, the 3 very popular movies. It has, successful TV shows, streaming shows. We've had Sonic Prime. Sonic Boom was very successful despite the games not being very well liked. The Knuckles Paramount Plus series, even though it wasn't very good, like it got good viewership numbers. And then obviously, like one thing that Sonic does consistently great is the merchandising side of things. Like he is in all kinds of stuff. We talked about the t-shirts, but like everything from coolers for like your picnic to like coffee mugs to everything you can imagine. Pens, I don't know, like skateboard decks. Like it's such a weird like spider web of like Sonic merch that you can get.
Sonic is almost a better merchandise company than a game series at this point. Not the games aren't good; the games are great, but like really good merchandising company.
Yeah, and as you'd indicated though, like it was a pretty sustained downturn. I would say from like the mid 2000s to like probably the subsequent like 13 or 14 years. Like Sonic Mania really felt like a turning point. And, I would say that's in general on an upward trajectory. Like Sonic Mania was quite good. Or I would say it ruled.
Yeah, awesome.
Sonic Forces was not very good. But I know you and I have differing opinions on Sonic Frontiers. I quite like it. I think it sets a good foundation for what the future could be for that franchise. But Sonic X Shadow Generations, as you talked about, is incredible.
Yeah, and Sonic Racing Cross Worlds from last year, the racing game, I thought was excellent. Like a really, really good cartoon, kart racer game. So like, I agree. I don't like Frontiers historically, famously, but I agree that I think it was like an interesting direction for it. And in context of all the other stuff, it's kind of like they have ideas. Like this is going somewhere. This feels good. I'm with you. I think like the future is as bright as ever for the Hog, for a good old friend, Mr. Hedgehog.
I had Logan Plant on this show. This was probably last year at this point, and I referred to Sega as the House of Hog, and he really did not like that.
Yeah, I think like as somebody in another industry would probably try to take that from you, but we won't get dirty.
Family friendly show.
Family friendly. House of Hog. I like it a lot.
Do you have a favorite modern 3D Sonic game?
Modern, I mean, are we talking, does Sonic Adventure 2 count? Or is that, you want more modern than that? Yeah,
no,
for me,
modern
Sonic Adventure 2, like for me, Sonic Adventure 2, I got that on GameCube when they released Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. It was a Valentine's Day present from my family at the time. And I have very fond memories of getting that game for the first time. I remember it. And like, as someone who, grew up on the Genesis and hadn't really played a Sonic game for a bit because I missed the Dreamcast, returning to that as like a teenager, a little bit older, not a kid anymore, was incredible. I mean, just like I was so into that game. Again, the attitude, the style of it. You had soaps, like you had the soap
shoes,
which was like so of the era, you know, and was still like, whoa, that's so cool. He got soaps. What a skater. What a punk. I always loved the character Knuckles and like getting to play as Knuckles in that game, even though his segments are not good. But at the time I was like, cool. And fun fact, my gamer name my gamer name, not my legal name, but my gamer name. When I name a character in a game, I always use Charo, Charro. That's like Link. That's just the name I use. And that actually comes from Sonic Adventure 2, because there was the Chow Garden in that game.
Mhm.
And if you didn't know what to name them, they would just like have a namer who would be like, hey, how about this name? And they would suggest things. And one of the name suggestions I got was Chowro with the O. And I was like, I kind of like that. And I took out the O, and Charo, ever since playing that game, has been like the go-to name I use for anything. So very fond memories of it.
I miss the Chow Garden so much.
It's so cool. Just make that a mobile game. Just spin that out into a mobile game. What are we doing? Make $1 billion.
Printing money. Yes.
Yeah. Turn it into a gotcha game.
Oh no, don't give them ideas.
I know, you're right. Sorry.
But
sorry.
I mean, they have Rovio now.
That's true. They got Rovio. They could make a gotcha Chow Garden. Don't
make gotcha, but like, you know, a mobile game where it's like, you know, maybe they could do something with that. Or just put it as a mainline Sonic game side thing. That would be even better.
Throw it in something. There's so much nostalgia for it. Like it's wild to me that they haven't gone back to it. But I will say that this is actually something I respect about Sonic Team, is like they don't do the thing you expect. They don't just do like, we're gonna do the same thing over and over again. Like they really do try to do experiments. And I think like that's why there was 13 years or whatever of Sonic being bad. Like to me, that's great, because I was like, well, it was bad not because like they were just making 2D Sonic games that weren't as good. It was bad because they were like, what if he kissed a human woman and was a werewolf? And like, that's so cool. That's such a cool way to be bad.
If you're going to strike out, at least swing big.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you don't get to like the point they're at now without like making those weird mistakes and failures and being like, but okay, what if there was an idea here that was good? And we could like riff on that a little bit more. Like you got to take risks, and that is a risk-taking series, and it has weathered a lot of storms to get there. So I have a lot of respect for it, and I think the bad period of Sonic I actually look back on very fondly.
I will say that from experience, I will tell you that if you call the Werehog sections bad, you're going to get some angry comments.
If you say anything negative about Sonic, you will get angry comments. I will say, and bless. If you're one of those people, bless you. I'm so happy that you care about the series enough to do that. Maybe don't do that just as like a social thing, but I love the passion. Great. Keep it up. Maybe without sending angry messages.
So before we get out of this segment, I do want to mention that I have done possibly more reporting and interviewing on the Sonic franchise than probably anybody else in games media. And this was just scratching the surface of the quotes that I've got over my time doing that. Like we only used like 2 quotes from Al Nielsen and Tom Kalinske. And I've actually, before we sat down and recorded this, I calculated how much time I've spent with Takashi Iizuka, who's the head of Sonic Team. Yeah. And it's probably more than 10 hours of my life has been spent sitting down with Takashi Iizuka. And he's been with Sonic Team for 34 years. And wow. I have interviewed Yuji Naka, I've interviewed Naoto Oshima, I've interviewed Al Nielsen, Tom Kalinske, the cast and director of the movies, and then several other figures in Sonic's history. And my first ever question to Shigeru Miyamoto, the first time I met him, was about Sonic the Hedgehog. So
wow. My gosh.
All that to say, there are plenty of other topics to touch on, whether you want to visit like kind of the rise and fall of the Sonic franchise from the 90s to the mid 2000s and onward, or, you know, how Sonic came to Nintendo consoles, because that was the question I asked Shigeru Miyamoto and Takashi Iizuka during that time. Yeah. Or even just doing this style of retrospective on other games. If you're into more Sonic themed stuff like this, let me know in the comments. And if you have any preferences of like where we go in the future, sound off.
All things Sonic.
Things Sonic. Hey, Sonic is now a part of the Nintendo family, because I would, if you're looking at like, even though Frontiers was like the worst way to play Sonic Frontiers was on Switch.
Yeah.
Like, now I know they just announced the definitive edition with no upgrade path, which is pretty terrible. But but presumably it's going to run great now. but back when it came out, Sonic Frontiers was easily the worst place to play it was on Switch.
Yeah.
I would still say that I associate Sonic more with Nintendo than I do other platform holders.
Yeah, I would agree, especially with Sega not being a platform holder anymore. Like, I absolutely, like, that's because he was born out of Nintendo. You know what I mean? Like, he was born as a response to Nintendo, and so like he's in Super Smash Brothers, man. Like, he counts. Just like Solid Snake, he counts.
So we are going to take our first break of this show, and when we return, we will be reviewing the latest Nintendo remake, Star Fox. We will be right back.
Ever wonder where Tropicana got its name? The tropics. And every time you enjoy a glass, you're not just drinking juice, you're taking a trip. Stepping into sunshine and embarking on a flavorful journey into the tropics where ripe fruit is crafted into wildly delicious juice. And the best part? No passport required. Tropicana. Give life some juice.
We are back, and if you have listened to this podcast before, you are already well aware that I am a big fan of the franchise we are talking about next, and that I am extremely excited about the remake that hits this week. It is Star Fox, the remake of one of my favorite Nintendo 64 games, and Gio and I have both played it. Now, Gio, I know you pitched an incredible sounding Star Fox roguelike game, I believe the last time on this show.
Yep.
What is your history with the Star Fox franchise?
Yeah, I don't remember when I first came into contact with it because I didn't have a Nintendo 64, but I remember that no, I do remember the first time I came in contact with it. I do. I didn't have a Nintendo 64, but for some reason, when it came out, one of the marketing tactics that they were doing for that game was you could get a VHS tape that was like a video about Star Fox 64. It was like this whole like it was basically a Nintendo Direct, like before Nintendo Directs, where I went to the mall and someone like handed it to me and was like, "Hey, you want to check out this cool game? Here's a free VHS tape about a game." And I don't have
just
it, but
like
I'm sure
a
it's somewhere.
Random guy in a trench coat, or what was this?
Straight up, like someone at like Sears, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like just was like there, like by the kiosks where you would play games, or whatever. And it was like, "Oh, hey, here's a free thing." And I had this VHS tape that I watched a lot. Like I didn't have a Nintendo 64, but I watched this VHS where it was just like a presentation about what Star Fox is and like what Star Fox 64 was at the time. And like, I remember it so clearly because I remember like, oh, like this is the Landmaster. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. All this stuff. But I didn't like play it for a really long time. I just knew everything about Star Fox 64. And I think I thought that I had played it at a certain point. I was like, oh, of course. Played Star Fox 64, but like I think it actually took like a pretty long time in my life to actually like get to it. But like I do remember playing it in high school at some point. I have some memories of that. And yeah, one of my favorite Nintendo games. Certainly like probably the second favorite Nintendo 64 game. If I was ranking them second or third. And I just maintain that it's like. It's not a perfect game because there are some sections of it that are annoying, right? Mm-hmm. Like the all range mode is tough. The tank and submarine stuff like isn't as good as the flying. There's some fiddliness to the controls, but like just as a vision, like I have always been obsessed with that game. In terms of the rest of the series. Like what rest of the series, like there's not much. But I did play Star Fox Adventures when I was a kid. I remember being obsessed with that game conceptually. Like it was one of those things where I was a Nintendo kid who was like reading all the magazines and was like, oh my God, this is gonna be the best game ever. I can't wait for it. This is already the best game ever. Like I don't even need reviews to tell me it. And I remember when the IGN 9 out of 10 dropped and I was like, oh yeah, see, I knew it. This game's great. And then was like, this game's fine. but yeah, I've always like, it's been a series that I like root for because I really want Nintendo to crack it. I really want like this idea of like an arcade style shoot 'em up to still work. And I was really excited to see that they were bringing back the series, even if it was just another remake of Star Fox 64, just because I was like, cool, like let's prove that the arcade style shoot 'em up still works and that people still like these characters and that there's something to do here. So yeah, long history with it, but it started with a VHS tape.
As most great stories do.
Yeah,
and
always.
At least The Ring. That's the only story I've ever heard, actually. So, there were two divisive things that popped up when this announcement was made that we were getting Star Fox on Switch 2. The biggest divisive thing I would say was the character models. And then the other one was that is a remake of Star Fox 64. What was your reaction when we got those pieces of information?
So I think, first of all, the character models, they were jarring to see at first. And they were jarring to see at first because you would just come off of the Mario Galaxy movie, where Fox looked great in it. And everyone loved that design. And everyone was like, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what you want this character to look like. And I think the initial shock of seeing those kind of uncanny characters, I certainly was like, oh my God, these things are ugly. But I think I kind of had that moment of well, I think when you take a second and step back and think about the history of these characters and the taxidermy kind of vibe of the puppets, you're like, oh, I get it. I get what they're doing. And this has a historical basis. And so I think I warmed up to them. I still, and maybe we'll probably talk about this when we get into the game, but there are still things that I think don't work about them. But I at least get the vision of them a little more now. In terms of the remake part of it, I definitely was kind of on the camp of well, I'm excited because Star Fox 64 is amazing. And if you make that game again, it's going to be great. But how many times am I going to play Star Fox 64? There's not much depth to that story. The levels are great, but it's pretty limited in scope, which is what makes it amazing, but also what makes it do I really need to play this 3 times in 4 different ways, whatever. So yeah, I was not super jazzed about that, but what I was jazzed about was learning the developer of the game, which is Velen Studios, who made the very criminally underrated Knockout City.
Yes,
really,
let's
really
go. I'm so happy you're
game.
on the side of that game because I love Knockout City.
Fantastic game, and really one of the most creative and fun multiplayer games that I've played in the past however many years of this being a huge live service trend. Loved it. Was really bummed out when it didn't last super long.
Also, the studio that did Mario Kart, the RC car version.
100%. Yeah, that's them. And so I was just you know what? I'm just glad Nintendo is working with the studio that clearly has good ideas. And I don't know how much you're going to get of that in a remake that's probably 1-to-1, but this is a good partner to have. And yeah, I think there are some points of this game where you see their DNA come through and you're if they get to make their own thing where they have full control, this was a great decision, and I hope it works out.
So remember, I pitched this as one of my games when you were on last time of a Star Fox 64 remake.
Yep.
That even spelled out the prologue being the betrayal of James McCloud by Pigma. And that I hit the nail on the head. The only thing that I said that was wrong was that it was a playable prologue, whereas this it's actually a cutscene, an extended cutscene that shows the betrayal. I think it would have been cool as a playable, but I get it.
I think so too.
So for me, it makes sense though, because this series has been just in the shadows or completely ignored for so long. They know this game hits. They know this is the one time they've really gotten Star Fox correct. So bring it here, give this studio a chance to really learn the ropes of Star Fox by remaking it. We've seen it so many times that a way that developers will learn how to do something is by remaking an older game. Pokemon Sword and Shield, that was predated by Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, and Junichi Masuda directly told me we wanted to do remakes of the Gen 1 games because that taught us a whole lot about how much longer it's going to take us to make higher res assets, what it takes to model all these environments in 3D for consoles. And then they were able to carry all those lessons into Pokemon Sword and Shield. And even talking to the Halo Campaign Evolve team, they were we're taking Halo to Unreal Engine 5 for the first time. this is a big learning experience for us where we don't have to focus on design as much as we can just, or story. We can just mostly focus on making this game work and look good and use this engine to really just make the best product possible.
Yeah, I've heard that from like the new Rayman remake that's coming out. I interviewed the team there recently, and they were straight up like, we want to make a new one. So like, we got to build a team to be able to make a new one. So you learn by making a good one. Metal Gear Solid Delta, the producers of that told me the same thing. They were like, not a lot of people around who made, you know, the original one, but there are still some people. So we want them to lead a new team and like, you know, direct that vision. And then I also had heard like Metroid Prime Remastered. That was also kind of like an internal project that was like, okay, Metroid Prime 4 is going to come back to Retro Studios, but we don't actually have a lot of the people here anymore who like made Metroid Prime 1. So like, let's remaster that game and like figure out how it's built. So yeah, very common practice, which like, man, I hope it works out. Like we saw this work out for like Grezzo, right? And for Mercury Steam. Grezzo did the Link's Awakening remake and then did Echoes of Wisdom. Mercury Steam did the Metroid 2 remake and then made the phenomenal Metroid Dread. And yeah, it seems like this is a very similar trajectory for Felon, assuming that people love this and it does well enough, but who knows?
So that raises the question, Gio, do you love it?
I have complicated feelings about it. And I'll preface all of this by saying, like, obviously the core game is great because Star Fox 64 is great. And I think it's always really complicated talking about remakes like this because, like, with Super Mario RPG, for instance, right? That got remade a couple years ago, right? And, like, the game is great because Super Mario RPG is a great RPG and they are basically doing a 1-to-1 remake of it. But if I'm coming to that game as like a reimagining of Super Mario RPG, I'm kind of like, I don't think any of the stuff that's the remake part of it is that interesting, right? And so you get into this weird thing where it's like, well, the game's great and it plays great, but like I don't necessarily like it as a remake. And like it's always very weird for me to like reckon with how I feel about games like that, right? Where it's like The Last of Us Part 1. Wow, it's one of the greatest games of all time. I don't know that the remake part of it did anything to make me like that game more. And I think that's the really tricky part of a remake is like, what are you doing to make me appreciate the base game more? And I think where I'm at with Star Fox is that like really liked playing it, really like revisiting that game, but like, do any of the remake parts of it actually change my relationship to Star Fox in any meaningful way? And I don't think so at the moment. And that's where I am right now. And I don't think that makes it bad by any means. I don't even think it makes it like not, you know, like I don't even think it makes it mid, you know what I mean? Like it's still good. But I think there's a really complicated conversation when it comes to remakes, which is just kind of like what is additive in a remake and like why would I play this over just going back to the original? Because having played the original Star Fox 64, I booted it up before the remake came in, and like I'm probably gonna reboot up the original again the next time I want to play Star Fox 64. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna go back to the Switch version, and not because it's not great, but because like the Star Fox 64 is so compact and perfect, and it has the high scoreboards, and like there's a lot of incentive to go back to it. Whereas the incentive in the new one, I think, is like the fact that it's cinematic and the fact that it like feels like a story, which is great, but like that's a little more one and done for me, right? Like it's not as much of like a high score chase game in the way that the original is. I'm curious about what you think of it, and there are specific points I can get into about like where I think it not works or doesn't work, but just is kind of lateral to me. But like I'm assuming you, as someone who loves this series, I have to imagine this is like a dream for you, right?
Oh yeah, like this and Ocarina of Time getting remade in the exact same calendar year is absurd to me.
Yeah.
Like I'm like this is like, you know, 11, 12-year-old Brian like is doing backflips and breaking his neck because he doesn't know how to do backflips. But like the fact that we're getting this and like this hopefully signals that we are getting another Star Fox game at some point if this is successful. That makes me super excited. And like I do see this as potentially as like reestablishing this this series as a both the character roster but also the story. And then from here, they can use it as a launching off point, and Velen or whoever, hopefully, I mean, I would assume Velen would do whatever comes next, because like, why would they have them do all this work and create all these character models and these worlds and these vehicles if they're not going to let them carry that forward into something new, or even a remake of like something like Star Fox Assault, where it's like, what if we just like actually remade that game from the ground up, because there are a lot of really cool ideas in that game. It just, I don't think was like ready for it. Like the tech was not there. They didn't know how to pull off like the third person shooting stuff. But that game was also famously not developed by any Nintendo owned studio. So I don't know if they would have like the rights to it, because that was Bandai Namco, right?
Yeah, I think that might have been Bandai. Sounds about right.
So I love this. I've played through it just a couple of times. I'm not handling the review for Game Informer. That was Kyle Hilliard, who has been on the show many times. But I have played through it a couple of times already, and I absolutely love it. I think that it controls phenomenally. This, like, if you like Star Fox 64 and you want a modernized version of that game that looks great in 2026 and plays really well, this is that game. Like, this is exactly what you're looking for, and I'm super stoked about that. Now, that said, I would love it. Like, the dream trajectory for me, like, if this is all we get, that's going to be a huge bummer. But if this is just like, again, the Metroid Prime remastered, and then later on we get Metroid Prime 4, if this is Star Fox, and then we get like a Star Fox insert subtitle, because it's probably not going to be Star Fox 2, given that there is already a Star Fox 2, and I doubt they're going to remake that game.
Remake Star Fox 2, baby.
I think that would be like the dream come true, and I think it's a brilliant move to kind of reestablish these characters and reestablish this world in some way outside of the movies and some way outside of Smash Brothers, because I always joke that like characters like Ness, characters like Captain Falcon, characters like Fox and Star Wolf and Falco, they're more well known for Smash Brothers at this point than they are their own games. Like, what's the youngest person who has played an F-Zero game? Like, it's not a very high bar, right? Like, it's been very, very out of commission, and Star Fox has been up there. Like, obviously we got Zero. Nobody played Zero because 1, it wasn't very good, and 2, it was on the Wii U, which was a monumental flop. And then before that, what was the game that came up before that? It was Star Fox 64 3D. Again, a remaster of Star Fox. Or Star Fox 64. So I'm super stoked that this game exists, and if it serves as a reestablishing of this franchise, I think that we're golden. I think that this would be a fantastic first step back into relevancy.
Yeah, and I think like the things that hold it back for me, like, aren't things where I'm like worried about the future of the series, right? Because I actually think the things that are really good about it are like all of the things that would carry forward, right? I think that like the way it controls, fantastic. Like they have that down. It feels great. The look of it, like I actually, character models aside, which I think like are hit and miss. I think some of them are good. Some of them, I'm not as into. Slippy's a little too wet for me. I'm sorry. He's just a little too wet. It's a little too much.
He's a toad. Of course he's wet.
I know, but it's too wet. I don't want to think about that. But like that.
Just imagine the mark he leaves in his R-wing chair when he gets up.
Oh, swamp butt. Like the kind of like way that the levels look, I think is great. Like it has like a nice spectacle to it. It pays off that kind of like Star Wars inspiration that the series came from. Even like some of the staging, like the cinematic staging of some of the cutscenes, I'm like, cool. Like if you were in a future game, great. And then I think like the real thing where I'm like, oh, I see a future for the series here, is this has a multiplayer battle mode that like is way too limited. Like there's barely anything in it. It's so disappointing. But like as a teaser of like, hey, this studio that makes multiplayer games, or that made a really good multiplayer game, knows how to make a really good multiplayer dogfighting like ship game. Like honestly, I see the future in like make another like quick campaign, but like give me the fleshed out multiplayer game that's like Star Wars Squadrons, but for Star Fox. And like this studio can nail that. And I think that is the thing I'm like really excited about. The stuff that I'm less interested in is all stuff that is just like, well, they're chained to having to remake this game. And like, it's very clear that their vision was, hey, we want to make like a more cinematic Star Fox game. We like see the movie influence of this series, and our vision is like, yeah, let's like make it Top Gun, right? Nintendo's Top Gun or Nintendo Star Wars or whatever. And I think that's cool. But I think that like the story of Star Fox 64 is like light, like it is a very like light, story. There's not like a ton of depth to it. There's a little bit in like, oh, his dad, like Fox's dad, and he has to live up to his legacy and all that stuff. But like, I think when you start stretching it out and you're like, okay, we're going to take all that and then make like 10 times as many cutscenes or whatever, right? You don't have much to work with. And I think a lot of the cutscenes in this game, while they look good and it's cool to see the characters like get to interact a little bit more, they don't really add much more to the story, right? It's just like Falco does more one-liners, and like Fox makes more jokes about how you owe us money because we're freelancers. And I found that those scenes like were restricted and really limited by like just having to stick to the story and whatever. And I think that like if you can take that and put that into an original story and give them more space to be like, okay, who are these characters? And let's like actually give them arcs and really treat this like a movie, as opposed to, well, we're doing Star Fox 64 and it has like 2 minutes of dialogue in the, like cinematics in the original or whatever. I think that that's what holds it back for me. And I think there are very little things along the way as well where I'm kind of like, it has a new voice cast. Understandable. You can't do the same voices. But I think they like really tried to like tone it down. The original is like very cartoony and exaggerated in a way that I think is like very fun and full of character. And I think the remake is a little more like reserved and kind of like, well, we don't want to ham it up too much because then it becomes like silly. And it's like, but like, it's a flying frog, like it's okay if it's silly. I'm like totally okay with that. You don't have to pretend that this is like super, super serious. Little decisions like that where I think like if they can if they can bring it back a little bit and be like, hey, we can keep this playful, and we can keep it like a little bit goofy while still playing up the space opera, melodrama of it. I think there's a sweet spot that they can hit if they have the confidence to kind of do their own thing from scratch.
Now, what I in terms of the cutscenes, I actually quite like the cutscenes. I think that they add a lot of cool context, and it adds more depth to the relationships between Fox, Falco, Slippy, and Peppy, and even General Pepper. Like it does feel like Velen is being held back by the existing structure of Star Fox 64. What I would like to see, because what they do in some of these cutscenes, and I've talked about this in the preview episode of Star Fox a few weeks ago, they make it so that you can be like, oh, well, you got the secret exit to this level. We're going to give you a choice of where you want to go next. Like, Katina is under attack by these invaders. You can go there and help them out. Or, you can go to Ficina and there's a secret military base that they're trying to attack, and we could really use some reinforcements there. And it's like, okay, that's kind of cool that like they're giving you like the context for why these missions are important. Yeah. And it like, even though like I know what I'm going to before I select it, like I'm like, oh yeah, well obviously I'm going to Katina. That's on the better path. Like I could see a world where in future games they use that to actually like institute a more robust player choice like mechanic into the structure of the game.
Yeah. I agree. And I think the other thing is just like where they are like, again, like they're very well executed cutscenes, like it's weird to complain about them because it's kind of like they did everything right, but I think like one thing I was reminded of when I was playing the remake, and this comes through because they do this 1-to-1, is like, man, the storytelling actually within the act of play is so good. Like the comms chatter and like things like that. And I cited this example in my review, which you can read on Polygon, but like in the first level, there is a secret path that you can get. And sorry, spoiler for the first level. Skip a minute. I don't know, but it's just how you can unlock like a secret route, which is like Falco at some point during the first level is under attack. There's a bunch of people on his tail and he's like cocky up to that point, and then people get on his tail and he's like, oh, something's wrong with my ship. Not my fault, And if you save him, there's a moment where he's like, oh, great, I was saved by Fox. And he gets like a little like emasculated about it. And he's kind of like, okay, well, you saved me, but like, let's see how much of a hero you really are. And then like, he challenges you to go underneath these archways. And if you do that, he's like, oh, whoa, okay, Fox, you got game. Like, you got game. You're worthy enough for me to show you this, like, secret VIP enemy. And, like, that is all told in gameplay, right? That's told from you being, like, skilled enough to knock the people off his tail. It's you being skilled enough to, like, do that little obstacle course. And, like, the marriage of play and storytelling that is in those moments, and that's in the original Star Fox 64, and it's in this, to me is just so unbeaten. And I didn't find that any of the cutscenes, like, do better, than that. So, like, I almost just want to see, like, them get a chance to do even more of that storytelling in game, and get to, like, invent some of that themselves, and, like, have, like, have your cutscenes and whatnot, but, like, tell me more of that story, like, in the comms chatter and, like, in the missions that you're doing and all that stuff. Because that, I think, is just still where the game is the strongest. There's no moment of storytelling in the new cutscenes that I think is, like, better than that moment. That's still such a killer piece for me.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I will say that one thing they've done along those lines of what you just described was they made the secrets more, like, laid out in front of you, right? Like, it used to just be like you had to discover that you flew underneath all the arches, and Falco would make a comment. He'd be like, pretty smooth flying, Fox. And that was, like, the only indicator that you had that, like, you were doing something right. Yeah. This time he's like, hey, Fox, try to fly under all those arches. And you're like, oh, okay. So I guess that's how I unlock the level. And then, like, in Meteo, which is the meteor field, if you go down the easy path, they're like, hey, there's an energy disturbance. Maybe fly through those portals. And it's like, okay, we're being very, like, explicit about here's how you unlock the next level, and not go along, like, the mission complete route. You get the mission accomplished route.
Right.
And, like, so I don't know how I feel about that. I think it's good for, like, newcomers, but, like, I do miss kind of the, like, all right, how do I get to that better route? And they are just like, hey, idiot, here's how you do it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. There's a fine line, I think, between, like, signposting too much and, like, making those moments more narrative. And I think that, like, like, the Meteo thing is a little more, like, on one side, but, like, again, going back to that Cronaria thing, like, I didn't mind that, Falco's like, hey, try flying under these things, because, again, it's so contextually grounded in, like, hey, I feel like you kind of just showed me up, and I need to, like, puff my feathers up and be like, oh, you think you're a hot shot? Like, see if you can do this like I can, sucker. And, like, the way that feeds in to, like, okay, now you're cool enough to hang with me, which means, like, come with me here. I'm going to show you something cool. Like, man, that's awesome. Like, that is so, so cool. And that's stuff that, again, is inherent to the, to Star Fox 64 that is brought out a little bit. And, like, man, that's to me the future of, like, how you tell a story in that series. It's just about finding that balance of, like, how you keep things feeling secret without, like, giving it away too much.
Yeah, and I love that if you're on the easy route, where it's like mission complete, you're not completing, like, the secret objectives or the secret exits, Falco is just, like, so, like, over you as, like, the leader of the team. Like, he's like, there's one on, like, after Meteo where he's like, well, maybe if we had a real leader, we'd be able to do this. And it's like, whoa. And he has, like, so much more respect for you if you take, like, the hard route, which is kind of cool.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, give me more of that. Right. And I think, like, that's where you have more flexibility when you're not stuck to a remake, right? Where you can actually be like, well, let's think of this as, like, a choice driven game. Right. And let's really dial into, like, how the different routes that you take are going to be, like, different narrative paths, which, again, Star Fox 64 has, but, like, I think there's room to really turn it up even more. And I think they try to do what they can in cutscenes in the remake. And I don't think that that's, like, the way that I think that story could be most effective. And I think you kind of have to do something new to get at that. But I think they did, like, a really good job with all the stuff they're doing. There's a clarity of vision here that I think is great. Like, I don't think that it's just, like, a cheap remake, right? I'm not like, they just, like, phoned it in and threw a coat of paint over it. Like, you can tell there is a vision of, like, no, we're going to make this thing, like, what if this was a movie, and what if it was narrative and cinematic? And whether you like that or not, up to you. I'm torn on it. There are parts that I like, there are parts that I don't like, but, like, the important thing is they have a vision, and, like, that sets them up really, really well if hopefully they get to do another one that is, like, their own thing that they can own.
Adobe Firefly is the all-in-one creative studio with AI-powered image and video editing for today's creative process. Built for creators of every kind, Firefly helps you generate, edit, and experiment fast. Because the asks aren't getting smaller, the budgets aren't getting bigger, and the timelines, oh yeah, still tight. With all the best creative AI models in one place, Firefly brings your ideas to life. Unlock a better way to make with Adobe Firefly.
So we talked about battle mode. It's fun for what it is, but it's very, bare bones. There's 3 different modes based across 3 different maps. So like one has you collecting energy crystals, one has you like getting loot from pirates that are going back and forth and retrieving it to your base.
Yeah.
The other one is Corneria, where you're controlling different zones across the map. It's fun, but it like you said, there's not much there.
It's not enough.
But the challenges, that was the other big addition here, where it was like you could attack these levels with different kind of modifiers and different missions.
Yeah.
I haven't really experimented too much with that. How does that come across in this package?
The challenges are like a fine way to get you to play more. Like basically the way it works is there's a challenge menu and you can just go and play any level a la carte after you've unlocked it in the campaign. And you have 6 normal missions that you do, and if you clear all of those, you unlock expert mode and you get 6 hard missions. And there's a progression, there's like a unlock system of like lore entries and like banners that you can use for multiplayer and all of this stuff. So there's a reason to go after them. And it's a neat idea because it like teaches you the nuances of each level. Like, they're really built around like, hey, this set piece during the level, like here's how we kind of optimally want you to interact with it if you want to like get the highest score, right? And do the secret path and all this stuff. So it kind of teaches you like, now I know how this level works a little bit more. And I think that's fine. Like I don't feel like positive or negative on it. I think it's like a fine way to get people to replay it. The thing that drives me nuts is that like they took out the high score leaderboards in this game. In the original Star Fox 64, you clear a run and you get a like final score that is like, hey, here's how many hits, here's like, deaths or whatever, like all this stuff is calculated into like a final score. And then you get like the old school arcade cabinet leaderboard, and they just don't do that in this, but like they still have a score system, and they still have like, if you die and take a continue, we're going to mark it on your record that you took a continue. And you're like, oh, cool. That's like an incentive to chase. But then that's like never a high score thing that you have to worry about at any point. Like there's no penalty to actually taking that. And it feels like that's just a missing piece of it that like the challenges are trying to solve for. Like, hey, how do we get people to replay this? We have to give them like achievements, because that's how gamers interact with games now. And it's a little sad to me, I think, to have it be like, nobody cares about high scores anymore. Like no one's going to care about that. We're not going to like have people really like chase leaderboards. Like that's not what sells a modern game in 2026. And I'm kind of like, man, but like, I do want that, like that's a really good incentive to get me to play that, like a short game over and over. And when you're dealing with a game that's less than 2 hours long, like you need as much as you can get, man. And like telling me to go back into the individual levels and do like a couple challenges, like I am way more likely to go back and try and get my higher score. And I think that's why I would go back and play the N64 version over this, right? Because there's a sense of mastery and progression to that game that like, so far, I don't feel the pull in this one as much. I feel a little more checklisty of like, okay, I did all the things in all the levels. I unlocked all the stuff. I'm done, and the Nintendo 64 one I never feel done with. Like I just never do. And there's like a checklist in this, and I just, it's modern game design. That's how we make them now. But like, it makes me a little bit sad.
Yeah, which is hilarious because every studio nowadays is looking for their forever game. And
we solved it. It's high scores.
But Star Fox available now as you are listening to this on your Switch 2. I really enjoy it so far. Yeah. I mean, I understand your criticisms. I agree with them to an extent. Yeah. I think that I might be a tiny bit higher on this game than you are, but I think we both are quite positive on it. And I would recommend it to anybody who loved Star Fox 64 back in the day, or has always been curious about like, hey, what's this Star Fox franchise? Why do people like it so much? This is a great way to find out.
Yeah, I like it overall. The takeaway from this, it is good. If you've never played Star Fox 64, I agree. Check it out. It's a great entry point into it. I just get into the finer points of remakes, and become a little heady about it. So if that stuff does not matter to you, you're going to have a great time.
So, Gio, before we get out of here, we have a new Nintendo game, another new Nintendo game coming out next week. I did not realize it was coming out like next week.
Back to back.
I traveled to New York, sunny New York City, they call it. And
yeah,
classically called sunny New York City, also known as the Windy City.
Yep.
And the City of Angels, New York City.
City of Angels, yeah.
And you and I we met up with Jesse Vitelli, and we got some Japanese curry. We got some ice cream. It was fantastic. And then I went and played Star Fox, which I talked about already on the show. But I also played Rhythm Heaven Groove during that, and I just have not had a chance to dive into that hands-on time until now, because I've been too busy with Summer Game Fest stuff and Ocarina of Time remake and all that stuff. So we're going to just take a couple minutes here to talk about Rhythm Heaven Groove, why you should care about it next week when it launches on Switch and Switch 2. I believe it's Switch and Switch 2.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Let's see here. It is Nintendo Switch System. Okay, so that it's backwards compatible on Switch 2.
Yes.
So it's a collection of more than 80 solo games and 30 plus co-op and competitive multiplayer games. And they're all rhythm based. So I had a chance to play through a few. I'm looking at my notes here. I got to play Hoop Trundling, where there's a hula hoop that comes at you, and like you're in a line of little guys, and you have to jump in rhythm with the little guys. And that's a fun time. Brawly Good Show, which is you all have umbrellas. You have to open and shut them to the beat, which is, quite fun as well. Disc Dog, where you're controlling a dog and you have an owner that's off in the distance and he's throwing a frisbee, and you have to go 7 beats after he throws that frisbee and jump up and catch the frisbee in your mouth. And then there was another one, Feeding the Beast, where you're a little dinosaur walking along like a thing, and little flowers are popping up and you have to catch them in your mouth all to the beat. And then there was a remix mode where after you beat all the levels in like a world, they give you a remix mode where it just throws them all at you at rapid fire, kind of like WarioWare style, like mixed into the same song. And it was, really fun going through those. I got really obsessed with trying to get like the highest score on all of them. Like it gives you like a rating. I think excellent is the highest score you can get.
Superb or something like that.
It's something like that. So I got all of them on like whatever the highest like rating is, except for one game. And there were also 2 in World 3 or Row 3 that you do. I did Slice and Dice Kitchen, where you are a woman chopping veggies and you have to catch the veggies that are being thrown from off screen. And that one is one of my favorites. It just has such like a satisfying snap every time you catch a veggie. Yeah. And then Hop, Stop, and Roll, where you are these little stacking dolls and you're bouncing around and you have to choose whether you're jumping or rolling or pausing. And it all these things coming to the at the beat, just I don't know. I love rhythm games, and I'm so happy Rhythm Heaven is back. I know we're talking about Star Fox a lot this episode, but this is another franchise that I feel has been dormant for too long, and now we're getting them in back-to-back weeks, which is wild.
So wild. Yeah, I mean, this is the joy of the Nintendo Switch era, right? Is like Nintendo is like, hey, anything can work. This thing just has such a high install base that like whatever, Tamagotchi Life is back, like all these weird games are back. And I agree. I'm like more excited about Rhythm Heaven being back in a weird way, because like my history with that goes back to like college, seeing that game for the first time like on the Wii and being like, what is this? Like it was like 2011, so it was before like indie games are everywhere and you see so much weird stuff. I was just like, this is unlike anything that I've seen, and it's so strange. I've played the demo version, which I think covers the first set of levels that you talked about there. Great. Like this is what that series has always been, and super fun. Looking forward to it. Recommendation that I will make, if I may, if you're a listener and you can't wait, you're just like, oh, I want to play this thing. I played the demo, really like it. Want like something to like, a little bit more of an appetizer so I can like get ready for this game. 2 really, really good Rhythm Heaven like games that I'll shout out. And I think one is on Switch, and I don't remember if the other one is. But number 1 is Melatonin, a really, really, really good Rhythm Heaven like game that is like you are someone with kind of like insomnia and you're having weird dreams, and all the dreams are like these weird surreal Heaven mini games. Really good one, great, recommend it. The other one came out in December. It's called Bits and Bops.
Bops. I don't know this one.
Bits and Bops is basically Rhythm Heaven. I mean, it's the same pitch as Rhythm Heaven, but it is so perfectly executed. It is so good. It's short. It's like 2 or 3 hours. You're done. Great. And it is the idea of Rhythm Heaven, but sometimes the like mini games are a little more narrative in structure. Like they tell little stories that like go through the whole thing, and like some of them are really cute and endearing. And they get really clever with the rhythms and the beats, and switching it up. I love that one. That's like one of my favorite Rhythm Heaven kind of like games. So two recommendations for you if you need something before Groove that you can play in the next week and be done with.
By the way, both of those are on Switch.
Good. Hit them
Both
up.
Melatonin and Bits and Bops. I did not know about Bits and Bops, but I just looked it up, and it is there, sure enough.
You got it, man. That game's great. Great game.
I also got to play the multiplayer a little bit. So I got to play 2 games. One was Cake Weight, which is a competitive multiplayer game where it's you and 3 people sitting around a table, and there's a piece of cake in the middle, and a timer starts counting down. It's 10, 9, 8, and then the numbers fade away. And your goal is to count in your head and get as close to 0.00 as possible. And the person who reaches in and gets it as close to 0 as possible wins. And it's just like whoever gets it, I think like 5 times or 3 to 5 times, whatever it is like the winner of that. That was so tense sitting there with like 3 other people, and like some people would mess up and it triggers a sound when they go too early, and then that messes up other people because like you're so on edge, like counting down. That's awesome. Really fun. And then there's Ninja Bodyguard, where you're working as a team. There's 4 of us like spread across, and there's archers up on like a hill, and they're shooting at like this transport, and you have a sword. And your job is to deflect the arrows, and you have to do it in the rhythm of the song, or else you miss. So that was fun. And then there's also a completely separate side mini RPG built into this game called Beat Spell, and it's only solo. And basically, you unlock it, and I think it's based on like the medals that you earn from like the solo play. And like you go through and like you learn different spells, and you have to cast them based on like the like there's one that's just like hit A on like it's like 4 corners of this square, and you just hit A, and like that's like casting fire. And then you learn a healing spell in the second world, and it's like A down, A, like it's like on the half beat you're doing that.
Yeah.
So you're learning these different spells. You have to be contextual with when you do them, and it seems like it's going to be kind of bite-sized, but I was only able to play a couple of the worlds, and then like you unlock more as you get more medals in the single player and multiplayer. So they're doing some cool stuff. There's boss battles in there, learning new spells as you go through the different worlds. I'm excited to see where that goes, because that's like a completely different branch than what we've ever seen with Rhythm Heaven. So we saw a little bit of that with the recent Nintendo Direct, and I believe I talked about it just a little bit in that recap episode.
Yeah, and that's really great to see, because like this is one of those series that's so hard, because it's like, how do you take this lightning in a bottle idea that doesn't have much room to grow, right? Like this idea of like, hey, these rhythm micro games, where you're just kind of like you said, like catching the vegetables on the beat and whatnot. I think series like this and like WarioWare like always have this trouble of like, oh, but how do we keep doing this, and how do you escalate it, and how do you make it interesting? And it eventually becomes stale, right? When you're kind of like, it's kind of the same game but more mini games. That's it, cool. So I was really happy to see and hear about the Beat Spell mode. I think that is like the best shot that this thing has at being like new idea, something totally cool, something we're different use of music and rhythm into a different genre kind of thing. I hope it works out. I hope that is a fun mode.
Yeah, and just like Star Fox, I hope that this is successful enough that Nintendo wants to continue putting these out, because Rhythm Heaven rules when it's like at its best. Like it's incredible. The same thing for WarioWare, right? Like I love these quick hit micro game compilations that we get every few years, and when these games are coming out on a regular basis, it just feels like such a creative time for Nintendo. And Nintendo's been reviving all these old franchises and bringing them back, and this fits right in with this current era, I feel like.
Shout out, I will say, because I think it might be the same developers, or at least the same studio. Nintendo game that no one has talked about this year that I just want to say is one of my favorite Nintendo games of the year so far. Picto Nico for the mobile phones, where you take photos and it's basically WarioWare, where it puts like your friends' faces onto things. That game is great. That's like a very, very fun, silly, goofy, casual mobile game that just is like scratches the WarioWare like touched itch, of like, oh, gets to do a little bit of whatever, and is clever. Is such a good, like, where did this photo even come from? What is even in my phone? And then you go through and you're like, wow, oh, I forgot about this photo. That's crazy. That game's great. I like that game a lot.
I've only checked it out in a very passing way, but it does seem very fun. And it's like cute. You said, if you like WarioWare, it seems like that's up your alley. Totally. But Rhythm Heaven Groove out next week on Switch, and then Star Fox out as you're listening to this episode. So, Gio, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of All Things Nintendo.
I am always happy to come on the show. Thank you so much for having me, and happy birthday, Sonic the Hedgehog.
And thank you so much, everyone, for listening. As you know, the Patreon and the associated Discord server are the best ways to get any questions or comments in. But you can also get in touch with me, Brian at allthingsnintendo.com, or hit me up on Blue Sky or Instagram at Brian P. Shea. Gio, tell everyone where they can find you online and plug your Star Fox review.
Oh my gosh, you can find me on Blue Sky, mostly at Mario Prime on there. You can find my writing about video games on Polygon.com, and that's where you can also find my review of Star Fox.
That is our show for this week. Thank you again for listening. Take care. We'll see you next time. Hey everyone, thank you so much for sticking it through and listening all the way to the end of this episode. Before we wrap up this show, I just want to give a special thank you to the $10 patrons of the All Things Nintendo podcast. Alex Stadnick, Ben Richland, Big Mitch, Chad Brecky, Chaps My Ass, Damian Patino, Derek Sigmund, Dusty Beeman, Ian T. Clark, Jawar Hello, Johnny Five, Jose Villalobos, Joshua DeProy, Casey Radio Man, Kenny Shaw, Cody Gibson, Creeper207, MPI Creates, Nathaniel Edison, Ozman83, Paul at Drunk on Mako, Pratable, Rob McCann, Bobby Mac 265, Robert Sosa, Roberto Nieves, Roger Reichart, Russell Sayer, Smithy Poo, Zane Sink, and Zek 3 Sword Sama. I say it every single week, but this show would not be possible without the support of the people who I just named and all the other folks over on the Patreon page. Thank you so much to everyone for your continued support.
Hello, I'm Friendship.
Hi, I'm Mealy, and we're the hosts of Getting Around to It, a podcast by creators for creators.
We talk about topics that content creators can relate to,
like algorithms, sponsorships, and parasocial relationships.
Plus, we'll give you that gentle nudge when you need to get it done.
Or a slightly less gentle nudge to just do it.
Tune in every other Monday, wherever you get your podcasts.